My ex-husband abandoned me at my hospital bed after my miscarriage, saying, "You're useless to me now." Years later I returned at his wedding with my new husband under a different name. What happened next shocked everyone in attendance. From the sterile chill of the hospital room, my life's purpose crystallized. I'm Alina, and this is where my story truly begins. Not with the fairy tale romance I'd imagined, but with words that would forever change me. "You're useless to me now." Gabriel's voice was flat, emotionless. He stood at the foot of my hospital bed, designer suit, pristine, as if he hadn't spent the last 6 hours in the waiting room while I lost our baby. "What?" My throat was raw from crying. The monitor still beeped steadily beside me, a cruel reminder that while my heart was still beating, something precious had stopped. "I married you to have children, Alina. That was the deal." He checked his Rolex, not even looking at me. "The doctor said there might be complications with future pregnancies. I can't waste time waiting around to see if you'll ever be able to carry to term." The nurse who had been adjusting my four froze, her hand hovering over the tubing. I saw fury flash across her face before she schooled her features into professional neutrality. "Gabriel, please." My voice cracked. "We can try again. We can adopt. There are options. I've already called my lawyer." He finally met my eyes, and I saw nothing there. No love, no grief. Just cold calculation. "The papers will be ready tomorrow. I suggest you sign them quickly. It'll be easier for both of us." The nurse stepped between us. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. My patient needs rest." Gabriel straightened his tie. "Of course. Goodbye, Alina." The door clicked shut behind him with terrible finality. "What a piece of work," the nurse muttered, checking my vitals. "Honey, do you want me to call someone?" I nodded numbly, and she handed me my phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed. "Mom?" The word came out as a sob. "Alina? What's wrong, sweetheart?" My mother's warm voice made the dam break. "Can you come, please? I lost the baby. And Gabriel, he's leaving me. That bastard." I heard keys jingling in the background. "I'm on my way. Don't you move a muscle." The nurse, her nameplate read Sarah, squeezed my hand. "Your mom's coming? Good. I'll bring you some tea." The next few hours passed in a blur. My mother arrived like an avenging angel, all 5'2" of her bristling with protective fury. She held me while I cried, stroked my hair like she did when I was small. "I knew that man was wrong for you from the start," she said, pulling back to look at me. "But listen to me, Alina. This is not the end of your story. This is just the beginning." "How can you say that?" I gestured at the hospital room, the monitors, my own broken body. "I've lost everything." "Everything?" She raised an eyebrow. "You've lost a husband who never deserved you and a baby who is too precious for this world. But you haven't lost yourself. You haven't lost your mind, your strength, your determination." "I don't feel very strong right now." "Then borrow mine until yours comes back." She gripped my hands. "You remember what I always told you about karma? That it's a patient accountant," I whispered, managing a weak smile. "Exactly. And someday when you're ready, you'll balance those books." She reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook and pen. "For now, we plan. We rebuild. We rise." Looking at that simple notebook, something shifted inside me. The raw wound of loss was still there, but alongside it, a seed of purpose took root. "First," I said, taking the pen, "I need a good divorce lawyer." Mom smiled. "That's my girl." And then I paused, the pen hovering over the blank page. "I think I want to become one." "A lawyer?" She nodded slowly. "You always did love arguing your case." For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt a flicker of something like hope. "I want to help people who've been wronged. I want to make sure justice is served." "Justice?" Mom's eyes twinkled. "Or revenge? Maybe both." I started writing, my handwriting growing stronger with each word. "But first, I need to get out of this hospital." "One step at a time, sweetheart." She settled into the chair beside my bed. "One step at a time." As night fell over the city, I kept writing. Plans, dreams, goals, each word a brick in the foundation of my new life. Gabriel thought he'd destroyed me, but he'd only cleared the ground for something stronger to grow. I am Alina, and this is where my story begins. Not with an ending, but with a promise to myself. Someday, the books would balance, and Gabriel would learn exactly what he'd thrown away. In his eyes, I saw echoes of who I once was and who I could still become. Jonathan sat across from me in the law school library, his textbook spread across the table like a paper fortress. "You're going about this all wrong," he said, tapping my case brief. "The precedent isn't in Thompson versus State. Look at the Marshall case from '98. 3 years had passed since the hospital room, and I was halfway through law school running on caffeine and determination. I'd met Jonathan in constitutional law where his brilliant arguments caught my attention, and my relentless questioning caught his. The Marshall case? I flipped through my notes. But that was about corporate fraud. not personal liability. Exactly. He leaned forward, eyes bright with enthusiasm. Think bigger, Alina. Sometimes the best path isn't the obvious one. A group of first years shuffled past our table, looking shell-shocked from their latest exam. I remembered that feeling. But now it was replaced by something else. Purpose. Speaking of thinking bigger, Jonathan said, closing his book, there's an internship opening at my father's firm. Corporate law. Mostly real estate deals. I shook my head. I'm focusing on family law. Remember? Are you? He gave me that penetrating look that always made me feel transparent. Or are you focusing on one particular family law case? My pen stilled. What do you mean? I've seen you researching Gabriel's company. Don't deny it. You're not as subtle as you think. Heat crept up my neck. I'm just keeping informed. Alina. Jonathan reached across the table, his hand covering mine. You're brilliant, driven, and capable of so much more than spending your career fixing other people's broken marriages. Take the internship. Learn how money really works. Then if you still want to pursue family law, you'll have a broader arsenal at your disposal. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. Turn on the business news now. I pulled out my laptop. Jonathan moving to my side of the table as I found a live stream. There was Gabriel standing at a podium announcing his company's expansion into international markets. Our future has never been brighter, he was saying, that familiar confident smile in place. With these new partnerships, we're positioned to double our market share within 5 years. Interesting timing, Jonathan murmured. Right after that merger with Pacific Holdings fell through, I turned to him sharply. How do you know about that? My father's firm handled the due diligence. Let's just say there were irregularities in the books. The library suddenly felt too small, too quiet. Tell me more. Over dinner? His smile was gentle but knowing. There's a new place downtown. Great wine list, better conversation. I hesitated. Since Gabriel, I'd kept my walls high, my focus narrow, but Jonathan had never tried to scale those walls. He just kept showing up, offering friendship, insight, and now possibly the key to understanding Gabriel's world. Okay, I said, but I'm not drinking wine on an empty stomach, and this isn't a date. Of course not. He gathered his books, amusement dancing in his eyes. Just two future lawyers discussing corporate finance over pasta. That evening changed everything. Over linguine and, yes, wine, Jonathan laid out the complex web of corporate law that could make or break companies like Gabriel's. With each detail, each potential vulnerability, I felt my perspective shifting. You're right, I admitted as we walked back to campus. I've been thinking too small. You've been thinking like someone who is wronged, he said. Start thinking like someone who wants to right those wrongs properly, legally, and absolutely. I stopped walking, studying his face in the streetlight. Why are you helping me? Because I recognize that look in your eyes. It's the same one I had when my mother left us for her yoga instructor, taking half the family fortune. He shrugged. The difference is I learned to channel it into something constructive. Let me help you do the same. And the internship is legitimate. You'd be amazing at it. The fact that it might help you understand how to legally dismantle someone's empire is just a bonus. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like years. You're dangerous. You know that? I prefer to think of myself as strategic. He offered his arm. Shall we head back? We have that ethics exam tomorrow, which is ironic given our conversation. Taking his arm, I felt something shift inside me, like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Jonathan, thank you for seeing me as I am, not as what happened to me. He squeezed my hand. Always. Now about that ethics exam. We walked back to campus discussing legal precedents and moral obligations, while in my mind, new possibilities began to take shape. Gabriel had taught me about loss. Jonathan was teaching me about power. And somewhere between the two, I was learning about justice. Every secret buried beneath layers of deception was a step closer to reckoning. I stood in my corner office watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over downtown. 7 years had transformed me from a broken woman into one of the city's most formidable corporate attorneys. Alina? Alyssa knocked on my open door, manila folder in hand. You need to see this. I turned from the window. The audit reports? She closed the door behind her, voice dropping. Better. Remember that tip about Gabriel's offshore accounts? I found something interesting in his company's subsidiary filings. My heart quickened, but I kept my voice steady. Show me. Alyssa spread the documents across my desk. See these transactions? They're routing money through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. But look at the dates. They align perfectly with the failed Pacific Holdings merger, I murmured, scanning the numbers. Jonathan was right. There's more. Alyssa pulled out another document. I spoke to Jonah's assistant, Gabriel's business partner. She's been keeping records of some questionable meetings. My phone buzzed. Jonathan. Hey, love. Still at the office? Just wrapping up. Found something interesting. Good interesting or bad interesting? I smiled. Come over tonight. I'll tell you everything. Already on my way, bringing takeout from that Thai place you love. After hanging up, I turned back to Alyssa. How solid is this evidence? She straightened her glasses. Solid enough to trigger an SEC investigation. But, Alina, she hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no going back. I've been waiting 7 years for this, Elisa. I'm ready. Then you should know. Gabriel's getting married. The words hit like a physical blow. What? It's all over the society pages. To Andrea Steele, the real estate heiress. The wedding's in 3 months. I sank into my chair, memories flooding back. My own wedding to Gabriel, the promises he'd made, the future he'd stolen. Alina? Alyssa's voice was gentle. Maybe this is a sign to let it go. You've built an amazing life. You have Jonathan, the firm, respect, and Gabriel has faced no consequences. I cut in. He destroyed me and walked away without a scratch. Now he's about to do it again to someone else. You don't know that. I know Gabriel. I stood up gathering the documents. Get me everything you can on Andrea Steele. And, Elisa? Thank you. She paused at the door. Just be careful. Revenge has a way of burning both ends. Later that night, I laid out everything for Jonathan over pad thai and wine. He listened intently, asking occasional questions, his real estate developer's mind catching details I'd missed. The timing's perfect, he said finally. With the wedding coming up, he'll be distracted, vulnerable. You don't think it's too much? He set down his wineglass. Honey, he left you in a hospital bed after losing your baby. He deserves whatever's coming. Elisa thinks I should let it go. And what do you think? I stood, walking to our apartment's floor-to-ceiling windows. Below, the city pulsed with life, each light representing someone's story, someone's truth. I think about that nurse, I said quietly, the one who was there when Gabriel left. How angry she was on my behalf. I think about other women like Andrea walking into marriages built on lies. Someone needs to expose the truth. Jonathan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Then do it. But do it smart. Do it legally. Make it stick. I will. I leaned back against him. I've learned from the best after all. Flatterer. He kissed my neck. Want to run through the plan? We spent the next hour mapping it out. The evidence would go to the SEC, but not yet. First, we'd need to position everything perfectly. The wedding would provide the perfect stage, all of Gabriel's business associates, investors, and society friends in one place. You know what this means? I said, looking at our notes. I'll have to see him again. Face to face. Are you ready for that? I thought about the hospital room, about the years of pain and rebuilding, about the woman I'd become. Yes, I said firmly. I'm not that broken girl anymore. I'm stronger now, smarter, and married to someone far more handsome, Jonathan added, making me laugh. That too. I gathered the documents into my briefcase. Tomorrow, I'll have Alyssa start the official paperwork. In 3 months, Gabriel's perfect world comes crashing down. And you? Jonathan asked softly. What happens to you after? I looked at him, at the life we'd built together, at the woman I saw in the mirror every morning. After? I finally close that chapter for good and write a new one. The city lights twinkled below, witnesses to my promise. The countdown to Gabriel's wedding had begun. Justice demanded more than knowledge. It demanded action. I sat in a cafe across from Jonah, Gabriel's business partner, watching him fidget with his coffee cup. 7 years had carved worry lines around his eyes, and his designer suit couldn't hide his nervous energy. I shouldn't be here, he said, glancing over his shoulder. If Gabriel finds out, he won't, I assured him. Unless you tell him. Why now, Alina? After all these years, I slid a folder across the table. Because of this, bank statements, offshore accounts, falsified records. You're not just his partner, Jonah. You're his accomplice. His face went pale as he flipped through the pages. How did you get these? Does it matter? What matters is that the SEC will get them too. Unless what? Hope flickered in his eyes. Unless you help me make things right. I leaned forward. Tell me everything. For the next hour, Jonah talked about Gabriel's schemes, the investors he'd defrauded, the women he'd used. Each word confirmed what I'd suspected. Nothing had changed. He was still the same calculating predator who'd left me in that hospital room. My phone buzzed. Sienna. Hey, I'm outside. Still meeting? Just finishing. Come in. Jonah stiffened when Sienna approached our table. I should go. One more thing, I said. Andrea Steele. What does she know? Nothing. He wouldn't meet my eyes. She thinks he's perfect, just like you did. Sienna slid into the vacant seat as Jonah hurried away. Well, he looked terrified. He should be. I showed her the notes I'd taken. Everything Elisa found was true and worse. Alina. Sienna hesitated. I've known you since college, you're my best friend, but this path you're on, are you sure it's worth it? You didn't see Andrea's interview in the society pages? Gabriel is everything I've ever dreamed of. We're planning to start a family right away. Oh, honey. Sienna reached for my hand. You can't save everyone. No. But I can stop him from destroying another life. My phone buzzed again. Alyssa this time. Hey, what's up? Gabriel's here at our office. My blood froze. What? He's asking for you. Says it's about the Reynolds merger. I'm on my way. I grabbed my bag, heart pounding. Sienna, go. Call me after. The elevator ride to my office felt endless. When I stepped out, there he was, looking exactly as I remembered yet somehow smaller, less intimidating. Alina. His smile was practiced professional. You look well. Gabriel, what do you want? Direct as ever. He followed me into my office. I heard you're handling the Reynolds merger. I'd like to discuss a potential partnership. Not interested. Come on, Alina. The past is the past. We were young. Things happened. Things happened? I turned to face him. Is that what you tell yourself at night? His smile hardened. I tell myself I made the right decision. Look at you now. Successful. Powerful. Would any of this have happened if I hadn't left? Get out. Think about the offer. It could be mutually beneficial. After he left, I called Jonathan. He knows, I said without preamble. He must suspect something. Or he's trying to neutralize a threat before his wedding. Jonathan's voice was calm, steadying. Did you tip your hand? No. But seeing him, I took a shaky breath. It brought everything back. Come home. We'll order in. Review the plan. You're not alone in this anymore. Remember? That evening, surrounded by case files and half-eaten pizza, I showed Jonathan everything Jonah had revealed. The evidence is solid, he said, but the timing has to be perfect. At the wedding. I know. I picked up a photo of Andrea from the society pages. Young, beautiful, trusting. Jonathan, am I doing the right thing? He set down his papers. Let me ask you something. If someone had shown you proof of who Gabriel really was before your wedding, would you have wanted to know? Yes, I whispered. God, yes. Then you're not just getting revenge. You're doing what someone should have done years ago. He squeezed my hand. But whatever happens, I'm with you. Looking at our intertwined fingers at the life we'd built, I felt certainty settle over me. Gabriel had walked into my office thinking he could manipulate me again, seeing only the broken woman he'd left behind. His mistake. 2 months until the wedding, I said. Time to set everything in motion. And after? I thought about Andrea, about justice, about closure. After we take that vacation to Italy you've been promising, I think I'll finally be ready. Jonathan smiled. I'll book the tickets tomorrow. The city hummed outside our windows, counting down the days until Gabriel's perfect world shattered. This time, I'd be the one walking away. Silence would no longer protect the guilty. The wedding invitation lay on my mother's kitchen table, its gold lettering catching the afternoon light. Mom set down her teacup, her expression troubled. It arrived this morning, I explained. Addressed to Miss Alina Collins and guest. He's actually invited me to his wedding. The audacity of that man. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she picked up the invitation. Alina, sweetheart, are you absolutely certain about this? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Sienna walked in carrying a stack of folders. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was horrible. She stopped short when she saw our faces. Oh, the invitation came. Perfect timing, I said, pulling out Alyssa's latest reports. We need to go over the final details. Mom stood up. Before you do, I need to say something. She took my hands in hers. I've watched you rebuild your life. You're stronger than I ever imagined possible. But this plan of yours, it could backfire spectacularly. Mom, let me finish. 7 years ago, I told you karma was a patient accountant, but sometimes the cost of balancing those books is higher than we expect. Sienna sat down, spreading the files across the table. She's right, Alina. I've been doing some digging on Andrea. She's not just some society princess. She runs 3 charitable foundations, mentors underprivileged kids. She's good, and that makes it worse, I said firmly. Gabriel will destroy her just like he tried to destroy me. The only difference is I can stop it this time. My phone rang. Alyssa. I put her on speaker. You need to see this, she said without preamble. Gabriel just moved $20 million through those shell companies. The pattern matches exactly what he did before the Pacific Holdings disaster. Mom's eyes widened. What does that mean? It means he's getting sloppy, I explained. Confident. The wedding's making him rush things. Or, Sienna interjected, he's setting up a trap. Think about it. The invitation? The sudden business proposal? Now this? I pulled out my laptop, bringing up the evidence we'd gathered. That's why we need to move faster. Alyssa, is everything ready with the SEC? Files are prepared. One word from you, and it all goes live. Mom touched the screen where Gabriel's company financials glowed. All this just to stop a wedding? No, I said quietly. To stop a predator. To protect someone else from living through what I did. To finally make him face consequences. The kitchen fell silent except for the jingle of the laptop. Outside, a lawnmower droned. Children played. Life went on. Normal, peaceful, untouched by the storm brewing in my mother's sunny kitchen. Sienna broke the silence. I spoke to Jonah again yesterday. He's terrified, Alina. Says Gabriel's been acting strange, making calls at odd hours. Because he knows something's coming, I said. He just doesn't know what or who, Mom added softly. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. Andrea just called the office, wants to discuss real estate for their new home. Meeting tomorrow? I showed the message to Sienna and Mom. Don't do it, Sienna said immediately. It's too risky. But Mom was studying my face. You're going to meet her, aren't you? I have to. I started gathering the files. I need to look in her eyes to be absolutely certain this is the right thing to do. And if it isn't, Mom's voice was gentle, then I'll find another way. But I won't let him hurt anyone else. Sienna stood up straightening her jacket. Then I'm coming with you. I'll sit in the lobby just in case. I'll have Elisa on standby too, I said, hugging Mom goodbye. Everything's going to be fine. Wait. Mom disappeared into her bedroom, returning with a small box. Inside was the necklace she'd worn at my wedding to Gabriel. You left this here years ago. I think it's time you had it back. Mom, I can't take it. Wear it tomorrow. Remember who you were, who you are, and most importantly, who you want to become. She clasped it around my neck. Just promise me something. Anything. When this is all over, let it be over. Really over. Don't let him take any more of your life than he already has. I touched the necklace, feeling its familiar weight. I promise. Driving home that evening, the wedding invitation